Clowns were not meant to be scary, so how did all of this happen? Some of the earliest depictions of clowns can actually be dated back to ancient Egypt, but the earliest that we can trace back the modern day clown is back to Greek and Roman theater. But this wasn't necessarily a character with crazy hair or a big red nose. This was more of like the village idiot. And many of the jokes were towards the wealthy people in the audience. And in the 16th century, words like clown and clone entered into the English dictionary. And in the 17th century, we saw the development of the harlequin, who was a brightly dressed trickster who could perform acrobatic tricks. And they would carry around these sticks to like slap people on the butt, and that's how we ended up coining the term slapstick. It was just hilarious back then. And by the 18th century, the modern clown started to take shape because this was a staple in every British theater show. And in the 19th century, we finally saw the circus clown. He was sent to amuse the audience in between acts. We finally saw things like ruffled collars, big hats, oversized shoes. In the 1930s, after the Great Depression, you started to see this sad clown trope. This is Emmett Kelly. He became very famous for playing this sad, homeless clown, which is apparently who 𝘃𝗏𝗃 is loosely based off of. But none of these are depictions of evil clowns, so where do evil clowns come from? Well, in 1849, Edgar Allan Poe made this story called Hop Frog, which featured a evil jester. 1892, we see this opera called 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗄𝗃, which includes this murderous clown. Joker became popular in the 1940s, but in the 1970s, this stuff skyrocketed. The infamous true crime case of John Wayne Gacy came out in the late 1970s, and he was arrested in 1978 for his despicable act, and people were horrified to figure out that he was Pogo the Clown and had such close proximity to children. And then this monstrous child-eating creature that took the form of Pennywise the Dancing Clown came out. Stephen King had taken a lot of inspiration from Gacy to create this story. Because of the case, it wasn't all that hard to believe now. The fear of clowns was no longer irrational. But the thing is, without even knowing about John Wayne Gacy and his crimes, many children and people in general are naturally afraid of clowns. Clowns don't innately have sharp teeth or threatening features, so why are people still afraid regardless? One of the reasons that you might feel a sense of fear while looking at a clown is because of the makeup. The makeup that clowns have on make it look like they have a forced smile at all times, so we're never really able to see their true emotions. It goes into the uncanny valley, where something seems human, looks human, but is not quite human. One Harvard Medical School psychiatrist even said that the distorted face of a clown reminds us of a decomposing body. If it's even possible to take it a darker step further, if a jester didn't make a king laugh, they were often mutilated back in the Middle Ages to make it look like they were smiling all the time. The rise of the 2016 clown panic did not help this at all.
This is what they meant when they said, "Don't talk to strangers." In the early 1900s, a 10-year-old boy was playing in the woods when a tall man appeared and asked if he wanted to come back to his cabin for dinner. Totally caught off guard, the boy reluctantly agrees and begins walking. When they get to the cabin, the boy is relieved when he sees Paul, a family friend, sitting on the porch, so the boy happily goes inside. After they eat, the boy says thank you to the strange tall man, says bye to Paul, and then he leaves. He had only walked a few steps when he sees his family, along with Paul, running up the path towards him, frantically asking if he was okay. Confused, the boy says, "I'm just fine," and he looks at Paul and he's like, "Why didn't you tell them I was with you at the cabin?" And he points over his shoulder. Paul glances over the boy's shoulder and then narrows his eyes and says, "You were kidnapped by a cult 3 days ago. No one's seen you." Terrified, the boy turns around to look at the cabin he just came from, and it's gone. All he sees is a dark forest that stretches for miles.
What if I told you guys that there's a haunted hotel that's filled with so many cursed objects that most people can't even spend the night? So picture this, you're Googling hotels that you want to stay at in Jefferson, Texas, planning a trip with friends or whoever. And you come across this hotel that has really quirky rooms, such as a room filled with dolls, a room with an underground speakeasy, a room that contains objects that looks like it's straight out of Five Nights at Freddy's, and so much more. And you think to yourself, wow, this looks cozy and comforting. So you go on your trip and you arrive at the hotel, but almost right off the bat, weird things start to occur. As you're looking at some of the objects around the hotel, your earring flies off your ear. As you back away to go back to your room, you see a shadow figure cross in the hallway. You then witness not only objects flying, but being catapulted through the air. And when you try to get away from all of it and go to your room for a night of peace, a mirror writes a message to you telling you to get out now. Well, this is just an average night at the historic Jefferson Hotel in Jefferson, Texas. And this is only a small fraction of the things that occur here. So how on earth did one place become filled with so much poltergeist activity? Well, the reason behind this haunting is absolutely shocking. Why is this place haunted by so many different entities? Well, this can only really be answered by its terrifying history. Well, the building was made in 1850 and it originally started out as a cotton warehouse. During its time as a warehouse, 2 children around the ages of 7 passed away inside the building. They are known as the Mill Children, and they now like to play pranks on guests and turn on and off lights and take keys. And while you might be thinking, oh, it can't get worse than children ghosts, not much long later it became a brothel, which you can only imagine the amount of deaths that happened during that. Allegedly, one of the women who worked in the brothel's son died in the bathtub. Okay, a bunch of my footage just deleted on me in the middle of filming this, but the room where the drowning occurred happened in the nautical room's bathtub. Also, while this place was a brothel, one of the girls was stabbed by their client in room 19. And she now will show up in the midst of showers or sometimes leave you messages on your mirror telling you to get out. But this is not even close to the only thing that happened in room 19. A woman by the name of Libby allegedly took her own life in here. This occurred after her husband left her at the altar. In the 1920s, the place later went on to become a speakeasy, and at some point had an Italian restaurant connected to it in which the cook was murdered, which explains all the activity in the kitchen. And if this history isn't enough to absolutely terrify you, the owners have collected thousands of their own cursed objects, from real human skulls to actual sarcophagi and even horror movie set props, essentially making this place into a playground for the dead. As time has gone on there, the owners have unearthed more and more mysteries about the place, including finding this little room upstairs. So the story is not over yet, and more reasons about why this place is so haunted is still yet to come. So just think of any situation in which you would have to sell your soul in order to have the body of an owl. I can't think of one either. So what exactly is an owl witch, and what are some of the theories behind them? So Robstown, Texas is a very small town in Texas, and whenever people started to report seeing this half bird, half human thing flying around, word traveled fast. And this caused people to, rightfully so, go a little crazy. It would sometimes be reported that it was a head of a human and the body of an owl, or that the head was an owl and there was other human-like features going on with the body. But it seems like people were just not taking it seriously enough until a couple of officers actually saw and made a report on this creature, saying that it was a giant bird with a human face and red glowing eyes. And after that, reportings of this thing just spread all over Texas. But the next reported sighting didn't happen until New Year's Day of 1967. Two girls by the name of Tracy Lawson and Jackie Davies were actually hanging out whenever Jackie saw that there was something flying overhead, and she grabbed her binoculars. And not even another week later, a man by the name of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 actually reported an alien-like creature slamming into the side of his trailer, and that it was like a bird, but not a bird. And another week after this, a guy by the name of Armando Grimaldi actually went outside to take a smoke break whenever he was dive bombed by the creature. And his injuries were so bad that he actually had to go to Wells County Hospital, and he reported that the thing had a gorilla-like face. And as more reports were made, it kind of went mainstream. It was on the Johnny Carson show, some people were spoofing it on TV. And then soon after, this thing weirdly appeared after a call to the police, but Captain Melvin Arnold said that this thing was all just a prank done by teenagers. Which is strange, but then the reports started to stop. But many people think that this is more than just a strange-looking bird, but instead the Mexican urban legend of 𝘃𝗵𝗄𝗃. So what exactly is the legend of 𝘃𝗵𝗄𝗃? So there's a couple of different tales in Mexican folklore that explain exactly what this is. One of the many versions of the story is about a woman who was practicing witchcraft in a village and was murdered by the villagers, so she later came back as an owl in order to seek revenge. The story is kind of reminiscent of the Rat Man of Southend England, which is about a homeless man who was wrongfully beaten by a group of teenagers and later came back to seek revenge in the form of a rat. So it's possible that they both gained their features from the same otherworldly life. There's always the classic theory that a woman made the oldest deal in the book, selling her soul to the devil. She may have been seeking powers, but the deal was to be a witch by day and an owl by night. And no promises that this is gonna be good, by the way. But this creature will target you and lure you in. And will do this by making a sound of a crying baby, or will sometimes even make a whistling noise right outside your door, waiting to tear their victims apart and do what with them? Eat them? Use their soul? I don't know.
Do you style your hair the same way every day? Well, there's an urban legend about a woman who always wore her hair in a bun, but for her, this habit would lead to something terrifying. This woman loved wearing her hair in a bun, but she might have taken it a bit too far. She didn't want to style her hair differently or even take out her bun to clean her hair. Whenever she took a shower, she would just wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her bun. At night, she would sleep with a towel around her hair so the bun didn't move. After a while, she had to put hairspray in it to mask the smell. Then her scalp started feeling itchy, so she would put more hairspray in it. Even when the itching got intense, she just applied more hairspray. But her husband finally found out about how bad the situation had gotten when he woke up one day and his wife was still asleep. He tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't move. She had died in the middle of the night. The husband called the police, fearing that something unusual might have happened. But when her body was examined, they finally took out her bun. Inside her hair, they found something terrifying. They found a huge spider had gotten into her hair, made a nest, and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they bit through her skull and ate her brain. This is why you should never watch TV late at night. Once a mother and a father decided they needed a break, so they planned a night out together, and they left their 2 children with their babysitter at home. Everything was going good, the children were well behaved, and the babysitter was just sitting around while watching the kids, but eventually she decided that she wanted to watch some TV. It turns out she couldn't watch it downstairs because they didn't have cable downstairs, so she called the parents and asked if she could watch TV with the kids in their room upstairs. The parents agreed. They were about to hang up the phone when the babysitter had one final request. As she entered the parents' bedroom, she asked if she could cover up their large clown statue with a cloth or a blanket. She said it was making her very uncomfortable. The phone line went dead for a second. Then the mother said over the phone, "Take the children and get out of the house. We don't have a clown statue." As the babysitter turned around, she saw the corners of the clown's mouth widen into a smile.
So someone impersonated my therapist and then came after me. So when I was 9 years old, my mother left me to pursue her dreams and discover who she was. And this was all because her therapist, Dr. Kathleen Porter, said that she couldn't be a good wife or mom unless she learned to put herself first. So after she left my dad, brother, and I, my dad stuck me with my first therapist. I would draw her pictures, and she would always tell my dad what they meant. A dark sky meant I was sad, and a house with one window meant that I felt trapped. I only saw my mom a couple more times in my life, once when she was passing through Colorado to go to a motivational speaking conference. We met at a diner, she talked about herself. And another time after I graduated when I decided to visit her at her home in Tuscan. I had been struggling to hold on to relationships, and I wanted an apology from the woman who abandoned me. And I thought if I got one, I'd be able to move on with my life, but my therapist warned me against this. So I went to confront her. But she just told me that she saved herself by leaving our family and was forever grateful to Dr. Porter. So since I didn't get an apology from her, I figured I would get an apology from a woman that I despise almost as much as my mother, Dr. Porter. She was still practicing. I had been keeping tabs on her for years, so I scheduled a session with her. I told her about my own mom abandoning me because she listened to a therapist and how much I struggled in my own life after that. She continued to remain expressionless, and I got the feeling that she might be a sociopath. I noticed a "You Are Enough" tattoo on her wrist. And after a few more sessions of talking about this, I was hoping that Dr. Porter would catch on. So I decided that I was going to confront her. But when I sat down in her office next, there were some things that were a little bit different. Her skin was tighter, her voice was lower, and the whole office was a lot darker. She was even compassionate and reassuring whenever I brought up my mom, stating that a therapist should never tell a patient what to do. I wanted to scream, "Well, this was all because of you," but I could tell that something was different. And when she went in for a hug at the end, I noticed that her tattoo was gone.